who's watching, or maybe good morning if you're watching it later. And hey, Tijuana Layne, you're with me, an actor, writer, and what else are you? You do all kinds of stuff.
I produce. I dance. Yeah,
That's the dancer,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So she is highly accomplished person that I have with me today. Thank you for joining me today,
Thank you.
Tawana.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and not only that, but now I can say hi to you when I walk past you in the neighborhood because I
Yes.
think you lived around the corner from me,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Junction in Toronto, which is
yes.
really funny because I didn't realize until like because you joined my Facebook group, the Talk
Yeah.
Like Facebook group, or I invited you to it, and I thought she looks familiar. I've seen her somewhere before, and and my wife, she saw your picture on the screen, and she's like, because I was playing like some of
Mhm.
the clips, and
Yeah.
she goes, "Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've seen her around. Yeah, I've spoken to her." So, um, so it's kind of funny that I get to meet you
Yeah.
online now, and actually know who you are rather than just like walk past you.
Well, I don't kind of advertise what I do, really. I just
Well,
kind of, you
who
know,
does? You know
yeah.
what I mean? You don't go walking around with
No.
a sign on your
Awesome.
head like,
Yeah.
"Hello, I'm an actor." So now I know. So it's finally great to meet you. And I've got a whole bunch of questions for you. And I'm going to start off with what did you want to be when you grow up? I don't mean that you haven't grown up yet. I mean, like, what did you want to
Well,
be when you were a
I'm
kid?
growing up. I figure I'm growing up. Um, totally opposite of what I ended up being. I first, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I wanted to be a scientist. So I did terrible things with insects. I would dissect and try to discover, what they were made of and all that kind of stuff and why they were a little bit different. And so my stepmom was really kind of grossed out about it, but I was very interested in that. Then I got interested in painting and sculpting, and I wanted to be a painter. I wanted to be like a visual artist, and that's what I started doing. And how it happened in acting was totally different. I got into a gifted children's program. They had two sections. They had the visual and they had the theater arts. And they ran out of space for the visual. So they said, if you're going to be in this program, I was 10, then you basically have only one choice. And that's the theater program. I didn't want to do it, but I ended up really doing well in it. And that's how I started.
Oh, right. So it basically you ended up being an actor kind of by accident in a
Yes,
way,
yes.
just
Yeah.
because they didn't have room for the
Yeah,
visual side of
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I
So,
was going to ask. I mean, it's clear now, but I was going to ask whether you got into this gifted school because you were gifted in dissecting insects, but now
oh
I
no,
see
no, it
it's
was
more
painting. It was painting,
painting.
not dissecting. Yeah, yeah,
And you could have been a scientist. I mean, you could have ended up
yeah,
as a scientist, but as it
yeah.
was, you want the sort of the more creative route,
Yes,
which
yes.
is really cool. Okay, and so the other thing is, like you said, you're a dancer as well as an actor and a writer. Which would you say you are first?
Actor first. Actor. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and do you bring any elements of your because dancing obviously is all about movement, it's about timing, it's about flow and all kinds of things. Is there would you say there's anything that you bring from that discipline into your art as an actor?
I find that so fascinating because it took me a long time to realize that the opportunity I had to be a dancer and to learn about dance and movement, different rhythm and music and all that enabled me to actually be how do I'm trying to say it in a precise way to understand about emotion and bringing out emotion physically, not not demanding it through language, but through the physicality, through kinetically.
Mhm.
So
So,
I think that I found a whole nother way of working as an actor by being a dancer.
oh, that's so you that's really great because that means that you've you can emote not just through your face. I mean, that's the other thing is like different kinds of actors. Screen
Mhm.
actor is going to emote in different way to somebody
Yes.
on the stage, right?
Yes.
So you're, and there is like the other side of that.
Yes.
The way I see it, correct me if I'm wrong, is that a dancer is somebody who interprets the emotion and and, and uses their entire body, their
Yes.
whole body
Yes.
into a particular to fit into a particular style. So if
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
if it's ballet, then obviously it's going to be fit that style. If it's going to be, break dancing is going to be completely different, but still it uses the whole body, the rhythm and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then you've got the stage acting, which still will be using your entire
Mhm.
body, and you have to emote bigger. Whereas when
Mhm.
it comes to the screen, it has to be so small.
But what's interesting about that is that with the camera, right? Because you're acting, that's your partner, the camera. It's not just your partner that you're
Mhm.
working with physically, but that's your partner too. It's a dance.
Yeah.
So what I find is that, and my editor taught me this too. There was an actor we were getting ready to cut a scene, and he said, "Well, he's acting with his body, but it's only the tension is here, and it's not in the core." And he was so perceptive, and I thought, this is what dance is giving me. So every cell of my body, when I'm even in front of the camera, though it's subtler than on the stage,
Mhm.
is engaged.
Right. So you have to make sure that the entirety is engaged, that
Yeah.
everything is, so you have to be aware of basically
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole the
Yeah.
entire,
The
yeah.
whole. Because most people think, oh, everything happens in the eyes, everything happens in the face. But that's not true. Because the truth it can't, if you're not engaged from the very bottom of your feet, then it's not truth in front of the camera.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So how does this translate to your writing? Like it's because the thing is you were telling me earlier this fascinating story of how you became a writer, a
Mm-hmm.
screen
Mm-hmm.
playwright. And so tell me how that all fits in. How does that fit in with your dancing and your acting, and how did you end up writing? Tell us that story.
Well, there was an agent. There was a friend said, go and talk to this person if you want to be represented. So I ended up talking to this person. So the person said to me, that you don't have a right to be in the industry because you can't be either white or black and all that. Because, in that kind of like very narrow viewpoint, right?
Mm,
And so I didn't take it like, oh, I should just quit acting or something like that. I thought, well, I know I have something to offer here to give back. And well, how can I do that without actually going into this kind of narrow view? And I didn't get angry. I didn't feel hurt. I
mm.
just said, what skills can I learn? What things can I do to change that? And so I taught myself how to write screenplays.
Right. So basically, you didn't say, okay, right, this isn't for me,
Mhm.
or I'm going to try and shoehorn myself
Yeah.
into whatever is available. You said, fuck it, I'm going to write my own stuff, and
Yeah.
write roles for myself. And you actually did that, and
Yes.
you've been doing that. That's amazing.
And I
That's
kind of had the most success. And I had another person said, "Well, what don't you want to be? Get with this agency?" I said, "No, I think I like what I'm doing now. It's like I'm happy. I
yeah.
don't really. It's like I know that world. I've been in that world. I worked in LA and all that kind of stuff. So I know that world. It's not what makes me happy. And I have this imagination, and
Mm.
I also feel that it's not just about me, but it's sharing and giving to other actors. So I write for actors.
Right. So and when you write something, do you have a particular actor in mind, or is
It
that,
depends. Sometimes it depends. Sometimes I just have the idea of the story and the characters, and then I go and cast.
Mhm.
Other times I might have worked with an actor that I can subconsciously see that they have more of a range, and if they're willing to have a challenge, I go, okay, let me write a role for them. Like even right now, I just finished writing another script, and it's on abuse, and I have some actors in mind because I worked with them before in another project, and so I'm
Yeah.
challenging them, and they're all excited. They're like, oh yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. And 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 I just see, I, I think I've learned by through casting for a number of years, not just to look at what's in front of me
Hmm.
and not just to have a preconception, because a lot of casting directors don't open their minds and see more than what's in front of them. So I've been able, and I'm very thankful and grateful that I look at actors when they come to the table, now with Zoom and all that, but I look and I imagine what can they do
Mm.
besides what they're auditioning for.
Right. What are they able to bring to this role? Like,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
great. So the other thing you touched on something earlier, which was a kind of a discrimination that you mentioned that it was a casting director that told you this
It
that
was
don't
an
think
agency, was
okay.
an agent,
We,
but
we won't we won't mention any names, but
no, 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 no names, no names. I
yeah,
didn't even know they're still working or not. So no.
but I'm kind of blown away that they said that, but because the thing is, I mean, I don't normally ask people about race, but as it basically the story kind of brought this to mind, and also uh, there was a word that is said. I
Oh
watched
yes,
the
I
clip, and
know that word. Yes, we won't say that word because
yeah,
it's
oh no, no, I'm not going to say what the
no,
word is, but there
no.
was a racial slur in that, and that made me think about race, obviously,
Mhm,
and then I thought, oh, d- does she identify as black? Like I would
mhm,
I wouldn't even know.
mhm.
I guess because when we were speaking earlier, you said that you identify as mixed race.
Yes.
So,
Well, it's kind of obvious. I mean, it's like I know there's this thing that about choosing, but I don't see how can you choose when you're one and this and that. I think is not a good situation because it's like you look at yourself in the mirror, you're not one thing, and most people aren't. So you had to celebrate that. And so when I say mixed race, I celebrate all the things I am.
hmm. And what do you think about this term of passing, like that adjective?
Oh, that's the yeah, that's the
I'm white
oh,
passing, or
oh wow, that's this is really an engaging conversation. Because I look a certain way, people assume, and then they think, oh, white passing is a choice. I think for some people because they feel that if they do that, that they are entitled to certain things because they will pass, and that is a historical thing that happened decades ago.
hmm,
And I find it's unfortunate that people feel that way. I don't want to judge that person because I don't know what circumstances they're dealing with. But I'm not white passing, even though it's, some people will assume something from me. That doesn't mean that I'm white passing. I even wrote a film, another screenplay that talks about this, talks about it in the present day,
mhm,
not like way, way back. But it's a story about a man falls in love with this woman that he assumes is white, finds out that she's not. Then he has to deal with all his biases. And she herself, which a lot of times in the Black community, we don't talk about this, that there is shadeism and colorism in the Black community because of the idea of, again, white passing and the privileges on
mhm.
people's skin tones.
Yeah,
So I talk about this in this film too. And my experience has been that it's been a very difficult subject for people to recognize or even want to recognize.
yeah. It's interesting. You bring that up, that in that particular community there is that, like you call, shadism, and I know
Mhm.
this exists in so many other communities too. Like for
Yes.
example, in India, somebody
Yes.
brought it to my attention. They said, check this ad out. So I
Mhm.
looked at this commercial, and it's from India, and it was for some kind of skin whitening
Yes. Yes.
cream or something. And I watched it like goggle eyed, like, what the,
Yeah.
how could that even exist? But
Yes.
it I just, that just blew my mind, because there is that. I mean, aside
Mhm.
from the caste system and everything that
Yeah.
it has been there for many hundreds of years, but the whole idea of, like, those shades and people saying, "Oh, I wish I had light skin like you," and
Mhm.
saying to other Indians, and
Yes. Oh,
yeah,
yes. It's very prominent. Even in Japan, they have
right.
skin lightening. Yes.
Yeah. And heard out about some Japanese. They have this term, buraku,
Mhm.
and buraku, like obviously based on the English word, it's an English based word, or it derives from English, the word black. But what it
Mhm.
means, it doesn't mean black in like the term that the adjective we have with the capital
Mhm.
B. It
Mhm.
means a particular like level of society in Japanese society that was considered like the very lowest. And
Oh.
so, and usually they were of a darker skin tone, like a more
Mhm.
olivey colored skin tone.
Mhm.
So that's another, yeah, it's another one. Like
Mhm.
they're everywhere, and they're not all. They haven't all been imposed by like Western European
Yes. Yes.
imperialism,
Yeah.
but they've been imposed by some kind of imperialism or
Mhm.
hegemony. Yeah,
Yes.
it's fascinating.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. That's why I feel that this film is going to resonate internationally because it's like you said, it's something that's being dealt with in different cultures and
Mhm.
has been even longer than what we've known in North America.
And the film that you're talking about, this
It's called
particular
The Color
one.
of the Heart. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a struggle, Mark, because I have dealt with, unfortunately, some biases and prejudices when developing this project. And so I have found a lovely Greek director in Montreal
Mhm.
that is taking this film on, that is representing in this film, and the fashion needs to be represented, looking at the story in such a way that is with respect, is truth, and so it took me a long time. It took me 4 years to find a director. I
So
went.
what kind of biases are we talking about here? Because we mentioned, like, obviously racial bias.
Yeah.
What kind of obstacles were thrown in your way to get this?
um, Obstacles, sexism, one, being a female filmmaker, um, writing roles that are black people that are lead roles was an issue. Um, oh, I hate to say this word, but white fragility, where
Yeah.
some, yes, some Caucasian elements were feeling that what was being represented was not fair, which it was, because I'm both sides. So
Right.
well, this is what it is, and this is what it is too. So it was an uphill battle to find people that would recognize the truth in the story and not be afraid. Yeah.
Right. So basically, you were dealing with a lot of fragility, people's
Yes. Yeah.
being challenged
Oh
with
yeah.
the
There
way
was.
they saw the world.
Oh yes. The way not just me saw the world, but because I went and talked to people who were experiencing this, because it's not just through my eyes. It can't be.
Yeah.
So I remember there was one woman who was so angry about the script, she scribbled out every word in the script. Um,
What?
I could not believe it was. I never see, because when you make a little note and you just like lightly, cross something out. No, this woman actually crossed. She was so angry. She tried to cross these words out with a pen. Yeah,
Okay. And that was
that was.
somebody who felt threatened by what was being
Yes, very
saying.
much so. Yeah. But subconsciously didn't even understand why she was feeling threatened. Yeah.
Oh. See, this is the thing. It really, a lot of it is down to subconscious, isn't it?
Mhm.
And the last couple of years with everything that's happened. I mean, obviously it's been a
Mhm.
shit, it's a total
Yeah.
shit show. But
Oh, yeah.
with
Yeah.
the Black Lives Matter thing and everything,
Mhm.
there's we've been forced, unless you're living under a rock, we've been forced to confront these ugly realities
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
especially in North America. Um,
Yes.
and and the thing is, like, it does take it does take a kind of an inward looking to try to work out, as a person who, like for me, not a person of color. I would say I'm definitely white. To look, to look inside at what prejudices you do have.
Mhm.
And the thing is, there are so many white people who are really afraid. I found out, like,
Yeah.
from seeing what other people have posted and replied to things that I've posted too, and like in
Mhm.
conversation, that so many people are kind of terrified, I think is the
Yeah.
word,
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
confront it, to even say, well, maybe there are things, or things that I say, maybe there are things that I think that could be considered racist. And there are
Yeah.
some people that will flat out say, I'm not a racist. I am
Yes.
not a racist. Get away from
Yes.
me.
Yes. Yes.
How dare you even
Yeah. Yeah.
insinuate that
Mhm.
I might have a single atom of, it's like, look, really, dude? And there was something I posted as a reply to, I can't remember what it was, but I replied to something saying, look, you know what? Maybe, like, it would be a lot better if you just kind of, if somebody said, "Oh, you're racist," then confront them in a friendly way and say, "Oh, could you please tell me
Mhm.
how?" I don't mean, "Well, how am I?" Like, not like
Yeah.
that. Let's say, like, "What is it that I said that you consider to be racist?"
Yes.
And then actually listen to what
Yes.
they say.
But
Actually,
that's the thing. That's the thing. It was hard to listen, right? Because we put that wall up. Because I even have found out for myself, just because the way my skin tone, I have certain privileges that people who have darker skin tones don't. So I had to come to terms with the fact that
right,
I have privilege. And that
right,
was a hard thing. I mean, and I learned that by doing this work, that I had to accept the fact that, yes, I have privilege.
right, right, and exactly, and that's it. And the other thing is that it's a continuum,
Yes.
right? It's
Yes.
absolutely a continuum, because
Mhm.
it's not that some people have privilege and some people don't have privilege. What you're shining a light on here is that within certain communities, there is, even when you focus in on that, you zoom in on it, you can see that there is a continuum between people within that community that have certain privilege, more privileges than others.
Mhm.
I mean, as a white person, I consider myself to have, a lot more
Yeah.
privilege. As a,
Yes.
first of all, I'm a white, cis,
Yes.
male, middle
Well,
age, speaking
yes.
English. I've got, like, I have all the trump cards, right?
Yeah.
And I'm willing to see that. Whereas there are a lot of other people that will say, that's all bullshit. That's all bullshit.
Mhm.
I came from a working class family and yada yada yada. And it's like, hang on a minute. You don't seem to understand this whole thing. Like, they don't get it. They can't see past that, that race is a part of this.
Yes.
You're poor, doesn't matter what class you are,
Yeah.
it's still a part of it. It's layers upon layers. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And because I've noticed that I've been treated differently on a set because of the assumption that I'm white.
wow.
And and it's really interesting to watch that, to walk in those shoes, right? And to see this behavior. And when I make note that, oh, I'm not, and it's like, oh my God, it's like you've just we've just given you all this, and but you're not, and it's just
We'll
it's
take it all back.
yes, but you can't take it all back because you just gave it to me. But it's it's opened my eyes that we need to listen, and we just can't assume. And 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 when I see the anger sometimes because I've had Black people tell me, well, you're not Black enough, and how dare you, you know, co-opt this, and but I've lived in the States, so I understand. But it's this perception. And when I write, like especially like something like The Color of the Heart, I had to understand these perceptions, and not just under my through my eyes, but through other people's eyes. Because that's the thing, as a writer, you can't just write. I know there's a saying, you have to write what you know,
Mhm.
which I do, but I also have to open up that door and listen to other people's experiences.
Right. So, what I want to do is play a bit of a movie that it's called Blue Rose.
Yes.
The Blue Rose. I want to play a bit of this because, as you mentioned about experiences, I'm guessing that a lot of this is based on experiences too, and then maybe we can
Well,
say,
not my experiences. I did a lot of
no,
research.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
never been that.
right.
Unfortunately, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, that's a terrible place to be.
Right. So yeah, I'll just let's just I'm gonna bring this on and play it because it's pretty intense. So
Mhm.
here we go.
You've been there for me when my folks died, and I need you to promise me something. Get out of here! I need your fucking help!
Okay, so that's the trailer from the Blue Rose, obviously. Um, Tell us a bit more about that story because it's obviously, you play a person who experiences homelessness.
Yeah. Um, the first spark for me, as far as inspiration, was that I noticed that when people talked about homelessness, they usually talk about homeless men. And I did a lot of research, and I found that yes, of course, we have homeless women, but homeless women, they it was harder for them because they were dealing with a lot of assaults, and it was not safe. And
Mhm.
I did the research, and I felt like this was something to talk about homelessness, not in one gender, but to look at how some women get to be homeless on the street. And this woman, unfortunately, had a breakdown because she was never really given the love that she should have had as a child. And there's a scene that's really heartbreaking where she wanted to express herself as an artist, and her father basically crushes those dreams. And there's nothing said in that scene. It's all physicality, but what is said in that physicality, you get the understanding how this young person's soul was crushed. And from that point, she didn't build the resolve to be who she needed to be as a human being.
Mhm.
And when she lost her husband, she didn't have anything to keep herself together. So alcoholism, homelessness, and the story is a story of redemption, because there's a man that always loved her, and doesn't come like a knight in shining armor,
Mhm.
but basically forces her to see that she needs to change her life.
Right. So this is the thing. Like, there's not. I don't think there are that many movies about that deal with
Yeah.
homelessness that much, and it it is something that I think another thing that is really kind of misunderstood by a lot of us. And a lot of us, walk down the street and see somebody, panhandling, and
Mhm.
just kind of will sometimes just walk by them. Like they suddenly they become invisible, and
Yes.
most people just don't engage with them. The occasional person will stop and say
Mhm.
hi or whatever,
Mhm.
but there's that fear. It's like, I think for a lot of people, there's a huge amount of fear that, oh my god, that could be me.
Yes.
Or for some it's fear, and for others it's like, oh my god, they're just scum. Like, they don't even bother. Like, they're,
It's that.
something, they're lazy, they don't
Mhm.
work,
Mhm.
but what they don't see is like all of the things leading up to that. Like you said, the soul crushing
Mhm.
destruction
Mhm.
of, it could be a broken family, it could be,
Yeah.
somebody, an abuser, all of
Mhm.
those things getting you to the point where you're, in that state of mind where
Mhm.
your brain is not functioning in the same way that somebody else would, and leads you on to the disease of the disease of addiction.
Yes,
So,
exactly, exactly. So that's what this film is about, and um, it was hard to do this film because we filmed in the Junction, by the way, but it
oh,
was all mostly
local.
nights. Yes,
Wow.
mostly nights, and even though the time of year wasn't dead of winter, it was physically draining and hard because we're in indie film, so we're not a big budget, situation where we can have people with their trailers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we were outside, and I thought, as filming like in the middle of the night at 12 midnight and lying on the cement on the ground, I just felt I had more of an understanding for people who actually are like that. So it gave me an empathy that I didn't have because I really had to understand what these characters were about, and being there physically like that, it made me look at the reality.
Right. So, is there any way we can? How can we watch Blue Rose? Is it released? Or,
Well, it's going through festivals right now. It just is shown in the States. It went in the Hamilton Black Film Festival last month. Um, actually 6 weeks ago, it got nominated 4 times: Best Picture, Best Directing, Best Actress, Best Editing. Um, so it's doing very well. It's going to be playing
lots
in.
of accolades.
Yes, it's
Oh,
going to be playing in the States again in October. And what I can do is I can pass the information to you. And if people want
great,
to see it, they can see it that way. Um, so I think, yeah, I think it has a very good run.
great. And right now, the movie you've just finished,
Mhm.
it's finished post production, I think.
No, it's just starting post. We just
It's just
shot 3 weeks
starting
ago.
post?
Yeah,
Okay, and
really
and
great.
this is not to be confused with the Blue Rose,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I got confused, like, is this
Yeah.
Blue Rose or the Blue Lady? Because
Yes.
this new one is the Blue Lady. Do you have an
Yeah.
obsession with the color, or what's going on there?
I don't know because I was just wondering because I even myself was like going, this is the third film with the color blue, and I was like, why? It's like,
Are
why?
you ever gonna make a movie called The Blue Chimpanzee?
No, no, I haven't done any comedies yet. But the Blue Lady, because of the pandemic, I noticed that people were hungry to connect, and that hunger manifested itself in different ways because we need to be connected to other human beings. So I'm just observing how people were trying to connect and they couldn't connect, and some of the things that were happening when loneliness set in. And so the very beginning of writing this was about a young man who was so disconnected, he orders a sex doll.
Is it what?
he orders a sex doll.
Well, he orders a sex doll.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
and he finds a way to connect that way, which is not helpful, and or but
Sorry to interrupt, but did you ever read about the guy who married a sex doll?
one of the makeup artists told me about that, but I couldn't read about it because I just thought it was like a little bit too much. A little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I try to reserve judgment. I mean,
Mhm.
but it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like saying it's creepy, but I don't know.
Yes.
It just seemed to. This guy was. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like if you were told this story, you'd imagine you'd have an image in your mind about what this guy would look
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
You'd think he had he was balding with a comb over. About 5'4", whatever. Kind of looked a bit sweaty. Like you would think that would be the guy, but from the images that I've seen, he looks like he works out a lot.
Mhm.
He's kind of buff. I mean, he's not an ugly guy by
Mhm.
any stretch of the imagination. So it makes you wonder, like, what's going on. But he seems happy, and I don't know. Maybe there is a connection. Maybe they have the same IQ. I don't know, but
I don't know, but the thing about this story is that the doll comes alive, so
oh,
you got to deal with it's not just the doll inanimate. Now the doll is alive, so
ah,
I twisted this story. Uh, so how do I say? I had a situation with someone who didn't really recognize the truth of the story, and I had an amazing, brilliant moment, and I rewrote it. I had to revise it, and so it ended up talking about love and how love doesn't die. And I found, even though the circumstance I didn't want to have happen, it enabled me to go to this next level for this story, that it just opened it up to this magic kind of. I just said, wow, so this has more of a strength to it than I ever thought it would. So now it's a story of a woman who dies during
mhm.
COVID, and she has this lovely, lovely relationship with this young man. And I cast a African Canadian man because I wanted to make sure this was a diverse story, because I had the opportunity to do that. And so the story is about this woman who didn't really understand what love was about. She dies, and this magical creature, this woman, other woman, like we say this kind of magician kind of person, brings this soul that died, that had this question about love, and placed her into a sex doll.
Well, that's a fascinating story. I got to see
Yes,
this.
yes, yes. So this is a blue lady. This is now the blue lady. So what happens is she learns about love by teaching someone else who can't love. And that soul is carried through eternity because love cannot die. And
Do you believe that? Do you believe that love cannot die?
I don't know if I believe it, but this story actually works.
Okay.
I
So
don't
the
know.
story says love does not die, but you're like, yeah, fuck it. It's like
Yeah, I'm not a
kind
romantic,
of
but it's like I don't write all the time like how I feel. And that's why I'm kind of a different writer. So I don't sometimes believe in what I'm writing, but it's a beautiful story.
yeah.
And it's the way it's being told. Is we worked with an award-winning cinematographer, Asku Peterman, and we had great fun on set. And it's very sensual, and it's just a story now that I feel that people can relate to and enjoy watching.
I'm sorry to keep going back to this, but with the sex doll,
Yeah. Yes.
what kind was it? It's not one of those ones you pump up with a like
No,
a
no, 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 this is one
and
of
like
this, no,
one of those
no, no, no.
things, right? Because that would be comical.
Yeah, it would be comical. No, this is a these are real sex dolls that cost a lot of money,
Yeah.
and they look extremely realistic.
Yeah, I there are documentaries on these. It's
Yeah,
amazing. Like
yeah,
they're designed like they're and you so I'm told just from the documentary. I honestly have not been searching this on the internet, but you you order the parts
yes,
to your specific
yeah,
requirements,
yes,
and it's like a huge industry now, and it's like a multi-million
yes,
dollar thing because they
yeah,
charge lots of money, and it's like everything looks real, like
yeah,
the whole thing, and it's kind of in a way it's creepy
yes,
that they appear to be quite lifelike.
yeah,
And like this guy that I told you that married his sex doll actually bona fide got married to her. It's like, dresses her up, takes her out.
yeah,
And it looks like a person almost,
yeah,
except that she doesn't move. Only
yeah,
I
yeah,
think Sex Doll 2.0,
hmm,
that is going to be moving and talking.
yes,
They are
yes,
starting on that.
yes. So I don't think I'm so out there on this. I just told the story in a different way.
Yeah,
But it's very difficult as the actor to play a sex doll because you can't move, you can't blink, and all that kind of stuff. And
right.
so it was a challenge. It was,
I'll bet.
yeah.
Wow. Um, that's amazing. And was she cast on like her symmet symmetricity? Was she
Uh,
symmetrical?
I'm probably the first biracial sex doll.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's amazing. It must have been a lot of fun to make as well. Like I imagine that
It could have been more fun.
to direct.
The last day of shoot was the most fun. It was because we were working with some amazing people, and we had Oscar had a great sense of humor, and was telling us the set was getting pretty heated.
As long as the doll doesn't melt, that's the main.
Yes, yes. But when she comes alive is a whole another dynamic. So yeah.
Okay, so you're inspired by things that you've seen and of course your imagination. What other sorts of things inspire you in your work?
I I really look at the things around me. I try not to judge. It's very difficult because as you get older, you get kind of set in certain things.
In
So,
your ways.
and what I always think is like think like a child in a way. Keep yourself open. Um, embrace things. Um, what I do and what I'm inspired is is looking at nature, looking at life, looking at behavior, reading, uh, trying to understand, uh, putting myself in positions where I'm not judging. I just want to understand and grow from, and that's is a different way of working as an artist.
Mhm.
But I'm understanding that this is how I blossom. This is how I give back, right? By just being.
It's great. Now, I have one more question that I try to remember to ask everyone that I interview because as a dialect coach, I feel remiss if I don't ask it.
Mhm.
So, have you ever played a part or written a part that requires a specific kind of accent?
When I first started my career, I had to do this Cockney accent, and I'm not in any way familiar with Cockney, so I had to be coached. It was Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit that the Cockney made,
Right.
and it took months, and I was being paid to do it the right way, so I had no choice, and I worked it and I did well. And it's interesting because like you're on stage and there's no like cut, like when you're in film, like if you don't do it right, oh cut, we'll do it
Let's
again.
do that again. Yeah, the dialect coach will talk to the director and say,
Yes.
"Yeah, that the word wasn't quite right." Yeah, in live theater, that's it.
Yeah, so I had to be right on my game, which I was very lucky, Mark. When I started, I had great mentors. I had great teachers great dialect coaches. Anything I needed, I had to make sure I did my best.
Awesome. And you say it took you months to prepare for that,
Yes.
to
Yeah,
to
because they
get
recorded the dialogue for me. I had to go and work with the dialect coach. The director would make sure I had it. Even before I had my first rehearsal, I had to have the dialogue.
excellent. So, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that it wasn't, you did it in 2 hours, because quite often coaches will get calls at the last minute to say, yeah, I've got an audition tomorrow, or you'll get a call which is like, okay, we're on set, and producers made a decision that that character is actually going to be from a different place, so
Oh,
then you've got to help someone with not very much time, but months is preferable to
yes,
minutes. So
yes. Well, this was staged though, so maybe they were
mhm,
more
it's
willing
all
to give that
prepared.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is equity. Is equity so, and that's a union. So they have to give you that time.
yeah, excellent. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer stage? Do you prefer screen?
I prefer the camera.
Right.
I have
I,
terrible stage fright.
oh,
So
really?
yeah, I don't really like stage.
Oh. You see, for me, like that terror, I find feeds me,
Oh,
actually, like, you going out there and it's instant. That's the thing, it's like instant gratification, like, the
yeah.
feedback you get from the audience that are awake is it's instant. It's fantastic. So for me, that was like a drug. But
Well,
I guess
I don't know because I don't even like having the audience there. I never liked. I was like, oh darn, there's a whole bunch of people and they're all looking at me. That's where my stage fright would be kicking in, and I would have this nightmare every single time I would go on stage. Same nightmare, exact same thing. Um, that I didn't have my lines. It,
I think that's everybody's nightmare. That's everyone's nightmare. That's the thing, like, not having your lines, and you must have you ever been in that position where it's like you blank and you
oh
can't
no,
get
actually, I've
anything
never.
through?
I've
You've
never.
never had that?
No, never had that.
Oh,
No.
you're lucky.
Yeah, I've never had it, and I've had other actors who've been on stage who've had it, and I've had to improv. I remember having improv a Shakespeare play,
Oh.
and I had to improv Shakespeare, and I was like, oh, I did, but it wasn't just for a few lines. I had to. It was at least a minute, and that minute was forever. And thinking on the top of my head,
That's terrifying.
it was like, what am I, you know, and I
I
had to do it. Yeah.
can imagine, like, other people on stage kind of like, "Fuck, what's going on? Where are we? What is happening?"
Well, he missed his cue. He missed his cue. So I was
Oh,
going,
no.
mm, yeah.
That's I don't even wanna think about that. That's gonna give me nightmares otherwise. Okay, so Tijuana, thank you so much for joining me here on Talk
It,
Like That. It's
it
been
was a pleasure. This is like really fun. Yeah.
so much fun for me, and to actually get to finally meet someone that I recognize walking past in the street.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
next time I see you, I'll say hi.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, and thanks everybody who came to watch us and are watching on repeat. Please do leave your comments down below on the YouTube side, and I'll be back another time soon. Thanks. Bye, everyone.